Welcome to selfdiscoveryradio.com, where the orchard of wisdom is just ready for picking. We celebrate your why, the journey that you've taken that inspires someone else. We support your services, we support your story. Come and be our guest, become a host, be an author with us. Come and see what we've got. Our next show is... Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Ignite Your Heart and Soul. I am your host, Sara, and my guest today is Reverend Connie Habash. Oh, the stress of it all. We are living in very, very high anxiety times, and it can be really tough to get through. Every time you switch on the news, there's something else going on. A lot of people are facing a lot of adversity right now. And how do you get through it? It's very, very hard. So this beautiful book that she's written called Calm and Confident, 7 Spiritual Keys to Overcoming Anxiety, is what we're talking about today, and boy, do we need it. I don't care if you are the gurus guru in the world. Everybody gets some stress, and we all go through a time period where we need to take that breath and just let it go. But it's not always easy to do, because sometimes we're just so caught up in the anxiety and the stress, and we don't realize everything's so clamped, and we don't know how to take that breath and let it go. And we also don't realize it's not just a mental thing, it's a mind, body, and soul thing. We have to let our spirit get into that action of releasing that anxiety so that the whole of us can get back into the fluidity of the answers and the solutions, or just facing what's coming next with a deep breath. Welcome to the show, Connie.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm delighted to be here.
Now, anxiety, I think probably if you put it out there right now, number one word that's out there amongst everybody's lips, who isn't stressed at the present moment?
A lot of people. I mean, I'm hearing about it everywhere in my counseling practice and on social media and on the TV. I mean, it's like all over the place. People are stressed out.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize that being stressed out, how detrimental it is to their entire body. We know what stress does to water, if the negativity is opposed to the positive crystals. We're 70% water, so that means all that stress is now bombarding our psyche, our heart, our soul, our bodies, and it will take a toll over a period of time, won't it?
Absolutely. One of the things I talk about in the book, which I learned from my years of teaching yoga, is how stress amps up the sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight or flight response, right? So whenever we get worried or fearful or stressed or overwhelmed or anxious, that kicks into high gear. And if that's happening repetitively over a long period of time, even good stress sometimes can do that. Then our body starts to feel fatigued, exhausted. Sometimes we run on that. We think, that amped up feeling is energy to get all this stuff done, right? I've been there, I've done that. But then we start to feel this exhaustion that comes in short order. It's kind of like, the sugar rush, and then you get the crash in 30 minutes or so. And that this not only takes a toll on us physically, but then obviously when it's affecting us physically, it starts to affect our emotions, our mental state, and we may not be able to connect as readily and feel aligned. That's a real powerful word for me this year, alignment with our divine self, because there's so much agitation going on that it's hard to make that conscious connection.
And people don't realize that alignment is imperative. We need to be in a line. We need our chakras to be in a line. We need to be in a line with all of our senses. We need to be in line with whatever divine source, that you're connected with, with the planet, with each other, with self. That alignment is our equilibrium. And if it's out of balance, that's where everything in your life starts going out of balance, like a domino effect, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people don't realize that they might be out of alignment, or they think they suspect that they are, but things on the outside are going well. There's a fairly new term that's come up recently called anxiety. And this is the people probably like you and me, a lot of people watching the show, that they're doing pretty well in their job or their business. They have a good relationship. They have, their family is doing pretty well. Their health is reasonably good. Like everything looks like it's
Mm.
fine on the surface, and inside they feel like constantly,
Yes, the
just
hamster on the
trying to.
treadmill.
Right,
Yes.
exactly. I'm thinking of the hamster, right? You can see me doing the wheel. That they're constantly trying to, or treading water. Sometimes I
Yes.
talk about like keeping up above all of the responsibilities, all of the expectations, all of their own inner judgments and inner
Mm.
criticism of not being good enough, doing enough, comparing themselves with other people. And so if we're in that place of high functioning anxiety, we still are worthy of receiving support and assistance to help move through that. Just because everything looks fine on the outside doesn't mean that there isn't something that your soul is really asking for on the inside, that you need that calm and you need that center and some more balance and harmony in your life so that you don't feel like a constant
Mm.
hamster on the wheel.
And the thing is when you are in that balance, it's life is a seesaw, yin and yang, and everything is about fluidity and movement because we're not meant to be stagnant creatures. But it is about that balance of you don't want the extreme high or the extreme low, but you do still want, that momentum going within a certain degree up and down. And once you find that balance, you find that that's your key to handling anxiety. Doesn't mean stuff is still not going to happen. It just means you're more equipped not to spike up or down when something happens to you, and that you're more able to cope with it and get back to that equilibrium.
Absolutely. I just taught a retreat this last weekend, and it was called Inspiring Resolve, where rather than making a New Year's resolution that actually causes you more anxiety because
Yes. Yeah.
you like get stressed out about I'm supposed to be losing X amount of weight, or I'm supposed to have given up chocolate, or I'm supposed to do meditation every day and I haven't done it, now I feel bad.
Yeah.
You let go of that and found what I was referring to as like your north on your compass.
Mm.
So a divine quality that helps you realign in any moment that you remember with, okay, I'm realigning with unconditional love right now. And just remembering that, and I told you my word for the year actually is alignment,
Mm-hmm.
helps calm my system rather than putting more expectations and more things on my to-do list of, I should be doing this now because I committed to it as my New Year's resolution. Like, okay, I can just realign right now to my quality for the year. So if that was compassion or if that was clarity, what would that feel like in my body right now? And that immediately calms my system down. There's nothing I have to do more of in order to calm my anxiety. It's really more exploring being more.
Yes. The
Connecting to
beingness,
my
not the
being.
doingness. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly. Connecting to my being and
Mm.
connecting to being this divine quality, allowing it to come
Mm.
through me rather than I have to dredge it up and try and become unconditionally loving. Like, okay, open and receive and let that flow through me. And that's part of what I get to in the book, is helping people connect to being in the present moment, especially my chapter on presence. It's the very
Mm.
first of my 7 keys.
Being present, the gift of the present is in the now. People don't give the now enough time.
It's ironic, huh? Because they think all we have is now. All we have is
Exactly.
now, but no one
Exactly.
pays attention to now.
No, it's, what am I meant to be doing in the next moment? Well, what
Right,
about
right,
this moment? This
right.
moment, we're having this great conversation that we're sharing out with the world. And we don't understand that this gift of the now and the energy that we give the now is already seeding that next moment, that next now that you're about
Absolutely.
to step into. And so many people worry about the next moment. And I think that goes back to another huge word,
That's
expectations.
right. Oh,
And you are expected to. And, I have a huge amount on my plate right now because we're about to emerge into another platform. I have a huge presentation to do. I've got an
big.
awful lot of work to do. But one thing I've learned through trial and tribulation and being on that hamster wheel is that nothing gets done if I'm overstressed, overexhausted, or just downright
Right.
overwrought, no
Exactly.
creativity is going to come to me in that space. So just do what I need to do, and when the time is ready, that creativity will flood, and that's when it's time to do it.
Absolutely. When you said about expectations, it immediately brought up back in the mid 80s, I took my first personal growth workshop. And in there, this is one of the things that has stayed with me all these years. They said expectations lead to disappointment.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yes.
it's absolutely true. And so one of the things that I write in Calm and Confident that draws from yoga philosophy is a concept called vairagya. And vairagya translates to non-attachment.
Mm-hmm.
So that we still, like you said, take all the right actions to set up your new platform that you're doing these programs on and all the things that you need to do. But we let go of the results of that. So,
Yes.
If it all comes together beautifully and easily, great. If there's some glitches along the way, that's just part of the process.
Right.
You and I are capable of handling that in each moment that we need to. And we trust that we'll get through and everything will come to completion. So that non-attachment is really important in calming our anxiety, because when we have those expectations and we want to make things happen a certain way or expect them to, and then what if they don't, then it sets off our disequilibrium.
Yes. And in that disappointment, I mean, I'm going to go into another word here of dictation. Don't dictate how it's going to be.
Right.
Allow it to be. Part of the beingness is being tuned into, and now the allowance is happening because I can feel the creativity coming through me. This is now the time to do what I need to do because those channels are open. Don't dictate, it's got to be this, it's got to be that, and I want it by this, and I want it by that. Creativity has just left the room, right? Because you can't work creatively under that pressure.
No, you can't. It's true. And so one thing that I feel is really important, one of the 7 keys, is that when we have anxiety come up, that we don't try to shove it away or push it away or deny it or power through it, like, oh, but I've got to work on this right now. I've got to be creative right now. But my anxiety is here blocking it.
Yes.
The anxiety is here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an important reason. And so first of all, we need to be able to learn how to feel it, actually. And I can talk more about that because most people are like, what are you talking about, Connie? I'm already feeling it. I don't want to feel it anymore. And then to be able to listen to its purpose, why it's come to you right now. So until we do that, we can't really move through it fully and then allow those creative juices and those channels to open in us and the flow to come through.
You find that a lot of people step into that anxiety, especially when they have something they've got to do, that it is an old repeat pattern just coming up. They're really not anxious because they're really excited about what they want to do. But the anxiety comes up, and that old patterning is that, oh, no, you won't do any good on this. No, you're going to fail on this. Oh, no, the no's come in. And it's all programming that's going on in the background.
Absolutely. So that's part of the key to feeling our anxiety, is not thinking our anxiety.
Yeah.
So we tend to really think our anxiety with all those kinds of thoughts that you said can arise from our past, or, from previous situations and relationships that said things to us and then they stuck in our head, like, oh, you can't do this, or you're not good enough, or things like that. And we're repeating those thoughts in our head, and then that's perpetuating the anxiety.
Yeah.
So one of the first things that we need to do is actually recognize that there are thoughts going on that are causing the anxiety. But in order to actually feel the anxiety, I need to go into my body.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be able to feel the physical sensations and not take the thoughts seriously. The thoughts come and go. The thoughts are actually not true and they're not reality. They're just, like you said, kind of old tapes or programs that we've had in there. And so then when we can actually feel the anxiety in our bodies, it has a cycle. It has a life cycle similar to a wave. The anxiety tends to arise, it builds, it crests like a wave. So then it gets really intense. and then it's, crashes or it rolls over on itself, and then it starts to dissipate. And there's, a practice that I do with my clients that helps them stay with that long enough to allow it to resolve. And then the peace and the clarity and the calm arise in its place.
Every wave that hits the shore disappears, right? It's no longer a wave.
That's right.
So if you allow it just to breathe through it, go through it, and just let it happen,
yes.
Would you say that's exactly the same thing for fear?
Well, yes. I mean, fear is,
Anxiety
is based on fear, right? But any emotion actually can be worked with this way.
I mean, so many times I come across people who are, oh, no, I can't do that. Fear. Yes, that brings up the anxiety because of the fear. But what are you afraid of? Oh, I don't know. I mean, that's just, fear, and I think people have been conditioned to be fearful, and they don't realize they're walking along with that conditioning. And that if they stop and break it down, they'll actually realize, what are you afraid of? There is nothing to be afraid of. This is something to be excited of. But again, going back to that conditioning, that brings about that anxiety because you've been conditioned to be fearful.
Absolutely. Well, there's essentially two kinds of fear. There's known fear and there's unknown fear.
Mm-hmm.
So known fear is, if you're out on a trail in Alaska and a grizzly bear shows up in front of you, you've got a known fear.
Yeah.
You better do something.
Go over and hug it.
No, I think I heard the other day the right thing to do with a grizzly bear is to lay down and play dead. But whatever, whereas a brown bear, I don't know. And anyway, you got to take some action.
Yeah.
Right? If a tiger's running after you, you better hightail it out there. Right?
Yeah.
That's known fear. There's something definitely that could be a threat to your life. But the majority of the time, our fears are not known fears.
Right.
They're unknown fears that we're creating, that we're fabricating, usually based on our past or anticipation of something in the future. And they're not happening right now. But we experience the fear right now because we're perpetuating it with our thoughts, which I know a lot of people know. They're probably watching this and go, okay, I know that.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's gone through that.
Sure. We might know it, but are we actually doing something to change that pattern in ourselves so that we're not under the effect of those fearful thoughts? And so that we recognize that our divine self, which is the witness, that witnesses our thinking, our emotions, our sensations, has the capacity to be able to say, oh, thoughts, that's not my reality right now. That's not happening right now. Let me let this fear move through my body and breathe through it and feel the sensations and then see what emerges on the other side of that. So it's really using our inner witness from our divine self to help unplug those fears.
I think it's a different way of looking at anticipation, isn't it? If you look at anticipation from a fear point of view, it will cripple you. If you look at it from a creative and exciting point of view, it creates a totally different picture.
Absolutely. We could be having thoughts about how wonderful it's going to be when you have your new program platform set up.
Right, exactly.
How, envisioning all the great things when someone has their new business set up, or when I'm, in a relationship with someone that I really love, or when I feel connected to the divine and deeply peaceful. And, if people work with some of the spiritual principles that are very popular right now, that's a big part of creating what you want in your life, is being able to envision those positive things. But, while we're on that subject, spiritual people, I think, have a higher propensity to experiencing anxiety. In fact, there was actually a study done in the UK a few years ago. I think it was 2007. I have it quoted in my book, that shows that people who are spiritually oriented have a higher prevalence for anxiety. Yes. And I think that's because we are sensitive beings and we care, right? So when we hear about, a tragedy, an earthquake that happens in South America, or I remember many years ago, I used to follow what was happening with wolves in the national parks here in the United States. And when I'd hear of, a killing of wolves, I would just burst into uncontrollable sobbing. we are sensitive beings. We
Yes.
deeply care. We can pick up on other people's emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's extra important
Yes.
for us on the spiritual path to be caring for ourselves and having healthy energetic boundaries, which is something I talk about in the book, to be able to respond to the suffering in the world or be able to connect to others, but not take it on and run it through our own bodies.
I am such a victim of that. That was
Mm.
me in neon lights. It was constantly caring, caring, taking everything on.
Yes.
Consequently, I became depleted in every way, emotionally, spiritually, physically, flattened out. And I had to learn to put some boundaries around me, vibrational boundaries around me. It doesn't mean I don't acknowledge what's going on. It means
Right.
that I have to be careful how much emotion I spend towards it. And there are days that I have to go, I can't go there today. I have to bypass that.
Right.
I have to bypass that.
Right.
My sensitivity is too high today. I'll get sucked in, and I'm not productive for that person if I am in the bucket of tears. But if I can look at the situation and send that wonderful loving light, that loving energy to resolve their problem, resolve this, the situation that they're in, that energy is going to be so much more productive than me getting worked up about it. So I think it's a very hard lesson to learn for sensitives, as we're known,
Yes.
to find that balance again, back to the balance, back to that equilibrium, and knowing yourself. And I'll have days where I'm really high. I'm picking up on that vibration globally, very,
Mm.
very high. And it's, oh, this is a nurture day. I have to nurture myself. Otherwise, it's too easy to go off the rails. So I think this is something, as a sensitive, we want people to be in tuned. We want people to become more conscious and
Absolutely.
sensitive, but know your balance. We don't want you to go off the rails because it ain't
Right.
fun.
Well, it's not just with world events. I mean, that's
No.
pretty anxiety provoking these days.
Yes.
Um, but with people around us. So a lot of
Mhm.
us tend to be naturally empathic and we pick up and absorb other people's emotions and
Yes.
energies, either consciously or unconsciously. And sometimes we think that's our way of showing we care is by kind of taking it on and taking it in. But then we recognize, oh my gosh, then my whole system gets out of whack and my anxiety goes up. So one of the things I talk about in the book is, we have, say, a dwelling that we live in, a house, an apartment, whatever it might be. And you might imagine that your house is a symbol for yourself.
Mhm.
So you have a house and you have a front door, right? And you don't want anybody off the street walking in your front door, going over to your refrigerator, taking out food and starting to eat, laying down in your bed. Like you don't, right? You don't want that to happen.
Intrusion. Yes.
Intrusion. Not even like good friends would you
No.
necessarily
No.
want to come in and do that
This is
willy-nilly,
your
right?
space. Yes.
Right. So what I suggest to people is to think of their self as not even just that front door, because having a stranger come up to your front door is uncomfortable in itself
Mm.
too. So thinking of our energetic boundaries, which I think, 2 to 3 feet around us is a healthy space. That's like your front yard.
Mhm.
When you have a gate out at the front yard. And when a stranger comes up or even someone that you can go out and meet them at the gate and connect with them there. And you can acknowledge them there and connect with them there. And if you want, you can invite them into your front yard, to your porch, sit down, have some tea. If there's someone you're extremely close to, you might consider them letting them in the door, but you don't have to. You can connect with them very substantially out in your front yard or even
Yeah.
at the gate. And that's like meeting them at the edge of your energy field. So
Right.
it's like your energetic skin, and you'll pick up on everything out there. You'll still be able to feel what's going on in the world. You'll still be able to pick up on, oh, they're feeling sad, they're feeling happy, but you won't be digesting it through your energetic and physical body, which
Where
won't
it's
help
so
anybody.
hard to get rid of afterwards. So yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
physically and methodically, I do that now. I go to meet people rather than having people into my
Exactly.
sanctuary. I have to have a space in my silence, in my space in my now, where this is my vibration that I'm in, and that's where I then get it back into my equilibrium, back into my balance. And if you've got people around you that are static, It's like trying to find your piece and somebody's playing the drums. You've
Yes.
got to honor yourself. You're no good to anyone else if you're frazzled, or if you're out of alignment, or if you're stressed out. So first and foremost, the importance of yourself is, this is the vehicle, this is the gift that you were given, this is your instrument. And if it is finely tuned and working properly, you're more able to play that music that becomes invitational to everyone else. But if the strings are
Absolutely.
broken because you're not paying attention, the piano is out of key, your music isn't going to resonate out there. So we have to honor the vessel that we're in, because this is what we were given here at this time and space to use to do our work with.
Absolutely. And I think, you're talking about an instrument. We're all part of a symphony. Every
Mhm,
instrument
mhm.
needs to be there to create that beautiful music.
Exactly.
One of the things that that was bringing up is that, a lot of people have said to me when I start to work with them on energetic boundaries, but, then Connie, I won't be able to connect with people anymore. It'll make me feel so distant.
Right.
And actually, what I point out to people is that if our energy field fills around us and we have a clear energetic edge that's like our energetic skin that can feel what's going on out there, you will pick up on what's going on sooner
Yes.
than when it has to come all the way in here in order for you to pick up on it. And so we'll actually be more attuned by having this clear energy field. It's like radar, right? I
Hmm,
mean,
hmm,
if you're a submarine and you're
hmm.
out in the ocean and there's, the other submarines out there, if you don't have radar to pick up on it out there, you're not
Crash
going to
bang.
find out. You're not going to find out until the torpedo is in there, right? So
Exactly.
we want to have that energetic field out there so that we are attuned to what's going on. And then we'll know how to respond better, both in our own self-care and also how we can be more of service to that other person, because it won't be crashing into us like a wave. It brings up also that in the book, I talk about the waves, and that have you ever swam in the ocean, Sarah?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So when you first learn to swim in the ocean, if you made the mistake I did, I just stood there and then the wave hits me, and what happens? Yeah, you're like, right, and you're like pummeled, right? I remember one time I was turned over so much in the sand in the ocean that I thought couldn't breathe. I thought I was going to die. So you don't want to just sit there and get pummeled by everything,
Right.
right? So what do we do when we swim in the ocean? When we're going out there, you have to dive into the
Into it.
waves. So you have to go up to meet them and go in. And so that's sort
Go
of
in to
like,
go through.
exactly. And that's going back to working with the waves of emotion,
Mm.
that if you just let them, pummel you over and over, they're not going to really dissipate, and you're not going to feel that shift from anxiety to calm and confident. We dive into them mindfully with the skill of knowing how to swim. We come up on the other side and we see that the wave has moved on now.
Right. Going back to the boundary elevation, we want people to raise that frequency, raise that energy signature. And you can do that when you have those parameters around you. You can raise it up really high, and you can astral travel, you can go off and do whatever you
Right.
want. But wherever you meet people at that vibration, that is your invitation that you're setting out. You're inviting people to rise up to that parameter level of vibration to communicate with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an
Right.
invitation to the piranhas that are just wanting to
That's
suck
right.
the energy out of you, because they can't reach you at that higher level. They're going to
It's true.
unfortunately hit the people that are climbing that ladder. So people have to be aware of who's around them at all times. But when you're at that certain vibrational level, you're inviting people to meet you and resonate with you at that level. And you
Yes.
will actually then find that energy begets energy, and it creates its own beautiful ripple effect out there. But there's a metaphor that I use of a ruler. And you're 6 to 12 inches of people that have stepped into that higher vibration
Mm.
are pretty secure. They're at that level where they know how to manage it. Their invitation is out there. They're not going to get sucked back in. Your 4 to 6s are those that are willingly stepping up into that consciousness, stepping up into that higher vibration. Your 1 to 3s are the piranhas. Those piranhas are going to
Mm.
go after the 4 to 6s, because
Mm.
they know that they can suck that energy out of them very easily. They can't reach the sixes and above.
Mm.
So when you are what I call in energetic recovery, and you are stepping into this higher consciousness, it is a very, very particular time of choosing who is around you. And there are certain people that do not want to see you find the harmony, find the good vibration,
Yeah.
find the love, find that equilibrium, because they are in such chaos that
Right.
they don't want you to find it. So it is a time where you have to be willing to shut yourself off from loved ones, from people, from everything, and just pour that energy and that love into yourself, and at least get you up to that level where you are safe. Otherwise, your just energy is going to get sucked down all the time by that negativity of people that are unwilling to take the journey.
That's very true. And what that brings up for me is in my embodiment chapter, the importance, the energy boundaries are in that chapter, but also the importance of being grounded and centered.
Mm-hmm.
So connecting to the earth and finding your center, your alignment of your center within, because that helps us develop that resilience of being in that higher vibration and not getting pulled down by what you're calling the piranhas around us, right?
And the prana energy isn't just people. It's tapping into all that static negative vibration that the
Right.
earth is carrying from what we keep putting it back into it. So, I think the earth is pretty saturated right now, and it is time we raise our vibration and start putting some love back in.
Absolutely.
And equal, balancing it out, which I think is really important. I think another thing that really we have to emphasize on is that you're there to help people with the book, with your teachings, to find this within themselves. You've got the tools and the guidance,
Mm-hmm.
but they have to have the responsibility to apply it, to walk
Absolutely.
it. And I think this is something people that they've most of their lives given their lives up to institutions, to society's dictations, to religions, where they've dictated everything you do. We're now saying take your life back and be at one with self from the inside out, not the outside in. But that requires you taking action. I call it actionism.
Yeah.
Stepping into your actionism of applying these tools, applying this, be willing to go through 1 wave, 2 wave, 3 waves, whatever it takes to raising up that vibration, because ultimately this is what you're here to do. And when you get to that resonance of that vibration and that instrument, you now know where to take it. But in that self-discovery of and taking back your own empowerment and becoming your beingness, you have got to be willing to apply these actions to you. No one else is going to do it for you. You're not doing it for them. You're just showing them how to do
Right.
it for themselves.
That's true. And that we are
Excuse me.
empowered. We have everything we need within us. And
Yes.
we are empowered to be able to create those changes that we want. And that's why, one thing that people who have a lot of anxiety, they might hear something like that and go, oh no, more than I have to do, and I'm overwhelmed and I can't do it, and it's too much. And what I want to say is that I wrote the book to ease those fears. That
Right.
it's simple, it's accessible, it's things that some of which you might already know, some of which are going to be new, but are easily applied in baby steps, and that we're not expected to be perfect. Part of what creates our anxiety and perpetuates it is expecting us, okay, now I've learned this new tool and now I should be able to do it perfectly.
Right.
And if I am not applying it perfectly, then I'm
I'm a
messed up and I
failure.
can't do this. Right, exactly. So I remind my readers over and over, like, this doesn't need to be applied perfectly. Take small steps, take your time with this. You can do this. And I try to give them real simple, easy, accessible things to do that can make a difference in bringing more of that calm, confident feeling that we long for.
I think it's also looking at the word perfection. Who imposed perfection upon us? And when we actually understand our uniqueness is in our imperfections, that's
Right.
when we actually understand what perfection is. It's in our imperfections, because that's
Well,
what makes us unique.
yeah, I actually believe that there's really no such thing as perfection or
Mhm.
imperfection, because it's a human created idea.
Yeah. It is.
We think that maybe, say, for example, God is perfect. But that's according to our limited
Interpretation.
definition of what perfect is, right?
Mhm.
God is infinite in all that is. So how could it possibly be limited to any idea that we
Yes.
have of what spirit or the divine is, even if we think perfect is that idea? So the divine transcends perfection and imperfection, and we are neither perfect nor imperfect. We are beings.
But it's
And
also the application of what we perceive is perfection,
right.
right? And um, if a God and that source energy, it doesn't know the words perfect or imperfect or
Right.
right or wrong. It just simply is an energy,
Mm-hmm.
a beautiful divine source energy of wisdom and knowledge that comes through us when we're ready to receive it. But it's in our application of that knowledge that really
Absolutely.
decides the outcome of it. They're going back to our responsibility, that we're given this beautiful divine knowledge. What are you going to do with it? How is
Mm-hmm.
it going to help others?
Right.
Because we're here to serve, not servitude, which we have become. We've become very much servants of a doctrine, but
Mm.
it is about service to one another. But first serve yourself so that your
Right.
cup can runneth over, so that you have something to serve to another.
Right. So allow ourselves to be filled
Yes,
first. And then as we're filled, then there begins to be what Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith talks about as the overflow. You
yes.
know, if we are
Mhm.
continually filling ourselves, then we'll eventually have more than enough and overflow to share with others.
And it's in that exuberance of sharing, that exuberance and that beautiful divine energy of seeing other people resonate out, pick up that loving vibration,
Mhm.
and seeing them rise up to it, is just absolutely wonderful, because little light bulbs go on in them. Oh gosh, this is what it feels like. And I always say that inspiration is an invitation. You're inspiring
Mhm.
and inviting them to step into their own journey. You too can feel like this. You too can feel this energy within you if you're willing to take the journey.
Absolutely. Um, what I was reflecting on is that when we open ourselves to the flow coming through us and filling our energy field, it's not really sometimes what causes our anxiety is thinking I have to do this, I
Mm,
have to, me,
yeah,
and from our own personal energy, which we know is limited and can be depleted. But when we open ourselves to infinite source
yeah.
and allow that energy to flow through us in service to others, then we're being filled in the process. We're not depleting our personal energy. And then there's an infinite source coming through that can serve others. And
Again,
so
the
then
vessel.
it is joyful.
Yes.
It's not like I'm draining myself by
No.
giving my last little drop.
Hmm.
No,
Which,
I'm
yeah.
filled and now I'm overflowing and this flow is coming through me to everyone.
And that is just it's just a wonderful experience. I call that the knowingness, channeling the knowingness, knowing what you need to know when you need to know it, and knowing what to do, and knowing where to be. How many people say, I don't know, how did I get here? How did I do this? It's just that you allowed all that channel, and you are where you're meant to be at that moment, doing what you're meant to be doing, because you didn't resist. Resistance is futile, you know.
Right, right.
Yeah, and the fluidity of energy, fluidity of air, the fluidity of water, um, energy constantly has to be in flow.
Yes.
When it's restricted and it becomes stagnant, that's when it starts to ferment and breaks things down. So our chi, our love, which is a loving energy, and everything about us has to flow, constantly be in movement.
Yes, you talked about resistance there. And that's one of the things that continues to perpetuate our fears and our worries is
And
resistance.
anxieties.
Pushing anxieties, right? It's pushing off things, trying to resist them. And so,
Mhm.
and you use the word allow. I love the word allow
Yes,
or let,
yes.
allowing it to flow and move through us is so much more calming. It's more empowering. You talked earlier about taking action.
Mhm.
And I have a chapter about empowering action in there, and that action can flow through us. It doesn't have to be something we try to force or make
Right.
happen. And that there's actually another kind of action that is a non-action that I talk about in the book. It's from Taoist philosophy. It's the action that arises of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes, some of us who have a lot of anxiety or stress or worry, or like we were talking about earlier, comparison, we're comparing ourselves and then trying to keep up with other people, are constantly acting and doing.
Yeah.
And so if that is our thing that we know is perpetuating the anxiety, then the action that might be needed is to stop and be still and wait until something shows up and comes to us.
Yes. Allowing again.
Allowing, exactly.
I think a lot of people feel that they need to be doing something right now in order to get the answers. And they don't realize that the answers come in stillness and in silence. That's when you are inviting and allowing it to come to you. There's a great little thing that's been going around Facebook, and it's somebody cross-legged on the ground. Hurry up, meditation, I don't have all day.
Right.
And the thing is, silence speaks volumes to us, doesn't it? Being still is something that is just so active. And I think people,
it's alive.
It is. And it's like sometimes just being still and being silent, being in that moment, being in nothingness, which I love, being in nothingness. The realization of what you need to know, the clarity on what you get from that is just absolutely divine. And we don't allow ourselves enough time again to be in that stillness, to be in that silence, because we're oversaturated. So we need to start taking things out of our outside life so that we allow our inside life to have its moment, have its peace, have its silence, to understand its clarity to what to bring into our outside.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right, Sarah, that we are oversaturated. We're inundated. In fact, I heard yesterday that every day we're inundated with something like 1,000 or 10,000 advertisements. I mean,
subliminal and all sorts. Yeah,
exactly. All around us, on social media, we may not be looking at them, but they're coming in to our peripheral vision. And so we are completely oversaturated with stuff outside of us, and then with our own thoughts inside. And I think, when you talk about nothingness, and that just brings up so much joy for me. But most people who are starting on the spiritual path might be beginning meditators. The idea of nothingness is pretty darn scary, right? They're like, what? Because it's that, again, fear of the unknown, that I don't know what nothingness is like. And nothingness always seems like, that dark night and what's around the corner, right?
The blank canvas.
Rather than that nothingness being that peace and that spaciousness and that infinite possibilities and potential and that joy and calm and bliss to arise. And so in the beginning, it's hard for people to understand that, but that as they work with some of the tools in the book, with learning to become present and starting to feel how much the body calms when we're more present, rather than in all of this chatter and all of this stuff that's not here right now, then that nothingness, that emptiness, that presence, that beingness begins to emerge, and they can feel how joyful and how much ease there is in that. I remember a client of mine who had bipolar was a little reluctant. They definitely did not want the lows, but they were a little reluctant to let go of the highs. And they didn't understand what the concept of contentment was, because contentment, when you have those highs, sounds kind of boring.
I know.
But the truth is, and I'm sure you know this, Sarah, that contentment is so much more rich and rewarding than those highs, because those highs are agitating. They're exhausting.
Draining.
It's totally draining.
Absolutely.
Right?
The
And this
piranha ring.
right, this contentment, which in yoga we call santosha. It's one of my favorite Sanskrit words, santosha. Doesn't it sound like contentment
Mm-hmm.
to say it? Um, is just feels like this tremendous sense of well-being,
Yeah.
and there's this joy in it that's really grounded, and it's not based on anything that has to happen or should have happened or that I have to do something. It's just being. There's this freedom in just being here in this moment and feeling that joy.
That's again the beingness. Everybody's doing. We're
Mhm.
asking you to be, and you can't be by doing. Oxymoron, because we're also asking you to do things to become a bee. And very, very conflicting. But the beingness that we're asking you to become is already within you. All we're asking you to do is certain things that allows your beingness to come out. And like sometimes just looking at a blank canvas and seeing nothing but the blank canvas, allowing the body to relax, allowing the mind to relax. Initially, the body's going to be tense, the mind's going to be chatter, it's
Right.
going to imagine all sorts of things. The more you stay in that space, in that breathing, in that silence, all of a sudden, the picture starts to arise. Again, what you need to know when you need to know it. And that clarity starts to dance before you. But you can't see that clarity on that blank slate unless you reach that certain state of beingness. So all you're doing with your book and with your teachings is helping people go in and allow themselves to become what they're meant to be and step into that beautiful serenity that lies within them, that peace that lies within them, that calling that lies within them. And we all want to be there, even though we don't know it. And also, when we do get there, we truly understand the gift of it. But every single one of us that got here got going through a number of waves and a
Absolutely.
few sand sucks to
Absolutely.
get there, right? So,
Right.
you didn't just suddenly one day wake up and go, oh, I am.
Right.
It is, you went through the process as well. And that's why you can write about it and you can teach about it because you've gone
Absolutely.
through the process yourself.
Right. And my favorite saying that I say to all my clients is trust the process.
Yes.
That process is what, and the process itself is what is magical. We tend to think we want to get to this end point of
Right.
like enlightenment or awakening, right? Like
The
just
end of
get
the end of the
there
book instead of the
and then
chapters.
we'll be done.
Yeah.
I mean, do we really want to be done? I mean, do
No.
we really want to just, but the process itself is the awakening. That's where
Yes.
the beauty is. That's where the joy is, not in getting to some end
No.
point, but every moment, like you say, the now, right? All the nows along the way. That's where the aliveness is, the richness of life. That's where we can feel calm and confident, not when I get to be awakened and enlightened, then I'll feel peaceful and calm and all that.
Yeah.
It's like right now you can, and in the next moment you can, and it may not every single moment. That's okay.
Right.
We
Yes.
can return to it again and again. We have that capacity.
We looked upon ourselves as our own book of life. And each part of our lives is a chapter. And for some people, their lives are a few books or many volumes.
Yes.
And for some people, you're just maybe 10 chapters and that's it. That's okay. It's what you're putting in each of those chapters. It's not about turn to the end of the book and what does it say at the end. That means
Right.
nothing if you don't know the story, if you don't know each chapter. One of the things about doing these shows and interviewing people that have had, I say ordinary people having extraordinary experiences. And some people, with what they've gone through, I just don't know how. They didn't go through waves, they went through tsunamis, and they came out the other side. And the courage and the strength that it took for them to get there, the fight for the love that they knew that lay within them, who they are today, and what they're sharing with the world is an extraordinary gift. But no matter what was thrown at them, they were willing to go through each chapter, through each wave, and come out the other end, and be grateful for the lessons that they learned. Be grateful for the tools that they learned, because it's now become their teachings, now become their calling, where they now can help other people go through the waves, or if so be it, tsunami that comes into their lives. But you look at these people in that inspiration, and that invitation is, if they can weather that storm, why can I not weather the waves that lie in front of me?
Absolutely. And we all have those waves, right? We all
Yes.
have weathered
Yeah.
challenges and difficulties. And each of our stories matter. I like to say that our ordinariness is the blessing.
Yes.
You know, we're all people, unfortunately, in this era, there's this desire for the 15 minutes of fame and to somehow stand out and be extraordinary. But I think what we are, our ordinariness of our vulnerability and the waves we've gone through and our story is the real gift. And
Is the
that's what inspires
extraordinariness.
people.
You know, the fact
Letting
that
the
you place that
ordinariness
value
into
upon yourself,
extraordinary.
you know.
Right, you know, but that's what inspires other people to walk through their own path and their
Yeah,
own waves. So
it
I
is.
completely with you.
And then I know you see this right now, an awful lot of people waking up to the consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, why do I feel this way? Why am I sensitive? What's going on? And it's the understanding of what's going on, but the how do I go through the wave now? How do I get through to the other side? How do I discover my purpose? I had somebody the other day that did everything. She went to gurus, to spiritualists. She took every program there was to discover her purpose. And everybody said the same thing. Yeah, but I'm not feeling it. This can't be my purpose. I'm not feeling it. And the operative word was, she wasn't feeling it. She was trying to discover it.
Right. She
Right?
wasn't being with it and
And
present
you
with it.
have to be willing to feel, to understand what is.
Right. Exactly. It's not this needing to go out and do and see another guru, read another book. I mean, you know, you might, but that the real answer isn't in all of that. Those might be part of what help you come back to
Yes.
being right here, right now, with your own divine self. We are all divine beings, as you well know.
Yeah.
And it's letting go of the perceptions that we aren't and the things that block us from seeing that in ourselves. That's the process for us.
You know, when you're pointing a finger at someone, there's three fingers pointing back at you.
Right.
So even if you're looking at a book that's helping you, it's helping you with the three fingers to look inside. You know, all you're doing is you're opening doors for them. And yet you're just saying, you know, when you open this door, have this tool ready. You know, have this light with you. And you're filling people's backpack of life. So as they go along the journey, you know what? That's chapter 4.
Right.
Bring out the tools for chapter 4.
Exactly.
I'm at this stage in life. So again, they've got to walk it. But what you're doing is preparing them to face it along the way.
Right. When you have these tools, and I like to have a variety of tools in my backpack to be able to deal with whatever situation arises.
Yes.
Then you can feel more resilient and more calm in the face of whatever wave comes at you. Because like I know how to swim now.
Right.
I know how to swim in the ocean.
Yes. This is a bigger wave, so it's a deeper breath to go through.
Yes, exactly.
Waiting to exhale on the other side.
Right. And to trust, you know, that moment of diving in.
Yes.
Makes me think of the seventh key, which is surrender. It's like you've done everything that you need to do. You know what you're doing. You know what to apply. And at a certain point, you just take that leap and you surrender and you trust. And I think we were talking about trust earlier.
Yes.
Something when we think of it earlier. That's one of the hardest things to do for people who have anxiety, right? Is to trust. But we can develop that like a muscle. We can practice it in baby steps. That if I can learn to sit down here and be in this moment for 30 seconds and trust that everything in these 30 seconds is really just fine, I can build on that then.
Right.
And so there's practices in the book to help build that trust and that surrender to something greater than us, to the divine, and allowing it to carry us and flow through us.
The big word allow again, which I'm going to go back to right now, is I remember being, I think, 8 months pregnant with my first child and kind of looking at it and go, I don't know if I can have you. I don't know if I'm ready for this. Can I even go through the labor? Going through can you go away? Going through that whole thing and then realizing, no, you're here to stay. and you've got to come out one way or the other. There is no going back. And
Absolutely.
the understand, the whole fear thing that you go through. Will I be a good mother? Can I do this? And I had horrific labors. I just was one of those people
Me
that
too. Me too.
and
Yep.
it's and the second you hold that child, everything that you've just gone through, that whole wave that you thought, I
Yeah.
can't get through it, I'm suffocating, blah, 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 that child is handed into your arms. And that download of understanding, that download of love, as those little eyes look up at you in trust,
Mm.
just changes your life so completely. So
Absolutely.
why can we not give birth to ourselves and hold ourselves in such a way and look at ourselves in the eyes and see all those beautiful possibilities and allow ourselves to be part of that discovery? I mean, we
Well,
can.
the spiritual path is the
Yes,
birthing process, right?
yes, yes.
It is, and we are giving birth to ourselves, and to know and trust that there is that divine, completely lovable and love within us that is coming through as we're allowed. And so those painful times in our lives, or the times when we have anxiety, is spirit calling us in another contraction, right, and saying,
Yes.
okay, you know what, it's your true self is emerging more and more, and this anxiety that's arisen is simply a marker here to show you one other layer that you can um, explore, to release, so that you can birth more fully as your true self.
And then when you are this beautiful newborn, suddenly there is that blank canvas in front of you.
Yeah.
It's no longer the conditioning, the programming, the expectations that you've left behind. You
Mm-hmm.
are this blank slate in a divine, beautiful, energetic presence that's never alone. And
Right.
now that paintbrush is in your hand. And when with the divine presence in sync with your presence, you now know what picture to really paint, and you allow. It's a beautiful experience, isn't it?
Absolutely, it is. It's funny though that you bring up about childbirth, because that's part of my own story in the book about how I worked through anxiety, because becoming a mother and going
Mhm.
through childbirth and then the whole initiation into motherhood, because you don't go back.
No,
You're, go on, you're a mother, and it doesn't stop when they're 18.
no,
Um,
all 36.
exactly, exactly. So um, that that's that brought up a lot of the anxiety that was hidden um, in my unconscious.
Mhm.
Now I'm responsible for this child,
Yes.
and so that was a tremendous initiation for me, to go to a far deeper level of myself and uncover these places where I was limiting myself from becoming my own true divine essence, from these unconscious fears and worries that were brought out by having my daughter. So in the book, I talk about some of my process in working through that, and that a lot of these keys in the book emerged from my own process, and then sharing that with my students and clients.
There's also a little bit of a danger once you have that child too. You pour everything into that child and you forget to reserve some for yourself.
Right. It's true.
Mhm.
It's very true.
Balance again,
Yeah.
balance.
Right.
And I think every mother goes through that at some point. And then it's like, well, hang on, I've given you everything and I've lost my identity. I've
Mhm.
lost who I am, and I think, for a while, I had three of them, balancing three of them, neighborhood kids, open house as well. And I did lose myself there in motherhood. And it was, who is Sara? Sarah was still the counselor. Sarah was still the coach. Sarah was still this and that. But it was, who was Sarah inside? I'd lost myself for a while. And I was too busy doing and being for everyone else. I'd forgotten how to be for myself. And I think it goes back to that, importance of self, not self-importance, which is ego derived, but
Right.
importance
Right.
of self, that I've learned to be a better mother and a more honest mother by becoming myself. This vessel of this being is here to do on this planet in this lifetime, than trying to be what everybody else wanted me to be at the sacrifice of myself.
Mm-hmm. Yes, our self, becoming ourself with a capital S
Yes.
versus our small s self, which might be defined by being a mother or
Yes.
being a yoga teacher or being,
Mhm.
female or male or whatever it is. That becoming our divine self is transcends. It includes all of that, but it transcends all that. We're far more than that.
Yes. Yeah, and don't
Mhm.
sell yourself short. There
Right.
was at the Golden Globes the other day. Oh, what's her name? It's right there. Blonde actress, short blonde hair. She was really surprised she had won. And I've got her name right here and I can't see it. But she went up there and she talked about, that when, becoming a mother or a woman or a wife, that you can be it all. You can have
Mhm.
a career. You can seek, stuff for yourself as well as being that it isn't one or the other. And, so many women related to that because we've been seeking that permission,
Mm.
right? And the only permission that we need to give is to ourselves. Nobody else needs to give us that permission.
Absolutely. And what I would say about being it all is that I believe we can be it all as long as we're not attached to any of it, as long
Right.
as we're allowing it to flow. And
Yes.
then in this moment, here I am being mother, and in this moment, I'm sitting down and being writer, and in this moment, I'm being speaker, in this moment, I'm being a good friend, but that we're not identifying with any of those roles. We're letting ourselves flow through them, and we're letting the divine flow through us to meet those different roles that we've chosen.
You're branching off, you've become the tree that's firmly rooted. You're
Mm.
very strong in your core, but you have many branches,
Mm.
right? And sometimes you're this branch, sometimes you're that branch, but you're all part of the same core.
Mm-hmm. Another way to say it. Absolutely. Mhm.
So you have this wonderful book that is out there. And what about the programs and the courses and what else that you do out there? What
Yeah.
else do you offer
So,
people?
a lot of people, some of my early readers have read the book and said, oh, I'd like to be able to do this kind of work with you.
Mhm.
I've created a program based on the book. It's an intensive 3-month program with a small group of people, and then I work with them weekly and then throughout the week in a group format, so that they can really make some big transformations in that 3-month period of time when you have that ongoing support and feedback and assistance and realigning with the
Yeah.
divine essence within and shifting and moving through those fearful, anxious, worrisome emotions.
Mhm.
So that program I'm going to be starting up in the next few months, and people can make an appointment with me for a free call. We can talk about it and find out what they're working on, what their anxiety is presenting with them these days, and what their goals are, where they would like to be, and to see if it's right for them.
And reading the book and comprehending it on one level, then going through the program and actually then opening it up and
Mm-hmm.
cracking it open to a much deeper level. First you have to have the people of free will to step up and say, I am allowing you to help me, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, help me understand this so I can immerse it into my own life. Again, that goes back to your participation, responsibility of your own action. But by having somebody there to guide you through each of those chapters of your own life, at the end of the book, they've now got wings, go fly, right? And that's
Right.
what you're wanting them to do. It's like when the kids grow up and leave the nest. You're never going to stop worrying about them or this is that, but you've prepared them for the life out there. So this journey that you're taking with people right now, using your book and the various chapters and wisdom in there, it's helping them to quote, go it out on their own.
Yes, absolutely. So, they'll have all the tools in the book, and they can take that with them and apply that for anyone who feels like, gosh, I'd really like to have someone help me with applying these tools,
Yes.
help me learn how to work with my anxiety like a wave, and, help me learn to be able to surrender and trust and keep me accountable week to week.
Yeah.
And then the program would probably be a great fit for them.
Right. And, for some people, it might be just picking up the book and reading
Mm-hmm.
the book and then
Right.
going through the process of their own, or
And they
maybe
can take
getting,
that on their own and take that off and work with that.
right, or
It's
even
all right there.
forming a book club, where each one
Yes,
of you read a chapter and what have we done in this chapter, and supporting one another. I think the thing, some people are solo people and want to do it on their own. Some people need a
mhm,
group, and whatever works for you, just do it.
absolutely. So that's why I want to make the book available to as many people as possible. They can take that on their own and they can take that to their communities. I think it'd be great to start book clubs around it
Yes.
where people are working with these practices together. And for people who want, that extra focused
Yes.
work with me, then that's available too.
And the thing we have to actually understand is that we are a village and we do need to support one another. We do not know all of the answers. There's 4 key personalities. We're generally 1 or 2 that guides us. And for those other perceptions, we need other people to see it from a different point of view for you to get the whole picture. And so this is why sharing it and go, I haven't looked at it from that point of view before. And that's the whole point in discussing it and sharing it, is being able to see it from all angles and how it applies to your life. Because sometimes it's that missing piece and you just don't quite get it. That other perception is one that helps you understand it in a clearer picture.
Absolutely. So having other people and their feedback and
Mm-hmm.
then hearing their experience and working with things, it makes a tremendous difference. I think group work is tremendously powerful. It's why I love leading groups. I love leading retreats and teaching workshops and things like that, because everyone else adds to the richness of it and co-creates something very synergistic.
It's like a beautiful buffet, everybody's dish,
Yes.
right? Just, sample of this and a sample of that. Wow,
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely. Everyone has gifts. Everyone has
Yes.
things to offer.
Yes. And you never know what button it's going to switch on in you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, whoa, I just had a moment,
It's
and
one of
that's what we're looking for, is like those little epiphanies that happen from somebody else's point of view or somebody else's
yes,
energy, somebody else's growth. It's really exciting. And I think that we've got to get out of this, that we are responsible for allowing and doing it ourselves, but we've got to get out of things that we're only on our own.
mm,
We need our community around
right.
us. We need other people around us for that encouragement, for that clarity, for that celebration. And, it's essential, because that's part of going back to the orchestra, right? You are that instrument. Other people playing their instruments, that music that you create out of that synergy is absolutely wonderful.
Absolutely. And that's, we all need community. And I think that it's harder for people to find community nowadays. I know where I live in Silicon Valley, it is a challenge for people to find, especially like spiritual community, conscious community, partially because people are too busy or they're spending too long commuting back
Right.
and forth to work. So I created this program so it can be online. I also have on Facebook, I also have a free group, a free community there called Spiritual Keys to Overcoming Anxiety that people are welcome to join from my Awakening Self Facebook page there. They can join my group there and get a taste of receiving that support and community.
Yes, it doesn't have to be your neighbors or people that come to your house. You can create, a weekly Zoom thing where everybody's there, and maybe a different person speaks to something that week and then invites everybody else into the conversation. Going to that Facebook with questions. I've read the book. I'm querying about this. I'm querying about that. And again, hearing that other perspective that's going on. It's really, really important. Very, very important that you understand other people's points of view. It's like art. Everybody's going to get a different impression from the art that you see. And when you share it, then you go, oh, I can see the picture in a bigger light. And that's what it's all about. So how do people get the book? Again, what is that Facebook that they sign up to? And what is your website?
And my website is Awakening Self, like that capital S self,
Mm-hmm.
SELF.com. I'm on Facebook at Awakening Self, and the group on Facebook is called Spiritual Keys to Overcoming Anxiety, which is on my Awakening Self Facebook page there. And so you can either email me at Connie@awakeningself.com if you want to contact me, or go to my website. I have lots of radio shows I've done and articles and resources, videos there to watch as well. And I post regularly on my Facebook Awakening Self page.
Excellent.
And then the book is available on Amazon, Calm and Confident, 7 Spiritual Keys to Overcoming Anxiety. It goes live January 17th. and it's available to download on Kindle.
Excellent. You know, I just did a show myself for this week, and I'm just calling the CCC, and it's like we've been looking at competitive and the cancer, all the negative C's, and now we're looking at collaborative instead of competitive.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at confident. We're looking at celebration. We're looking at all those things that are positive. And I think this is something that is important to life is let's be mindful of the words we use, because every word has an energy. And if we start being aware of that, I could change that word to something better. I could change that to something that has a higher energy signature. And in that, you're retraining your mind, but you're also igniting your heart and soul into it, which is really, really important. So going back to allowing, going back to awareness, going back to riding the wave, it's that, again, resistance is futile. Just take a deep breath and go with the flow. With the backpack of tools, and you'll understand that your journey is absolutely awesome. It doesn't matter even if you trip over a few potholes along the way.
Excuse me.
No, the coughs are out there right now. I've just gone through a bout of bronchitis, and it just seems everywhere has something going on at the moment.
I made it through almost the whole show
yes.
without coughing, Sarah.
Yeah, you did better than me. I had a couple of coughs through there. I mean, last week I did shows where I had no voice. I was this the whole way. But the show
so we don't have to be perfect to have gifts to share and
no, absolutely not.
Really enforce that with people, not enforce that, but bring that out.
Encourage it. Encourage it in people, yes.
And it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yes, and if you are in a group and it's like, I haven't got a voice this week, that's okay, sign language. Write it down.
Or just that
take it in.
presence.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Just being listening is a gift.
Yes. Oh boy, not enough of that is done. And how can you understand if you don't listen? And it's not listening to respond, it's listening to hear. And, I've recently gone into videos just under a year ago. All my other shows for 5 years was just purely podcasts. And I often used to say people see better when they hear. So, whether you're watching through a video or listening through a podcast, whichever way you take in the information, just allow it to happen, but absorb what's being said to you. You can even pause the show, digest it, go back, re-listen, move on, it's whatever way, but just participate, right? Allow.
I'm going to be allowing all day, Sarah.
Yes.
Allowing the divine to flow through.
Exactly. And, I have found most, especially since I moved here to Victoria, BC, where the energy is very conducive to mine, that that word allow has been so invitational. And I have physically met people, and it has just been so wonderfully in sync. People vibrationally in sync, even if maybe we're not all at the same vibrational level, we're all in the same parameters. We're all on the same path moving forward. And when you raise that vibration and you find that synergy, you start finding other people in that same vibration. And there again, there's your orchestra, right? And you may have a few orchestras. You play a different instrument in different orchestra. It doesn't matter. But when you get together, that harmony of that synergy is just so uplifting. So really encourage people to kind of raise that vibration, place that value upon yourself, discover your beingness, because you will then discover your orchestra or many orchestras and really get playing and become invitational to other people. So much fun.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Connie. It's been wonderful having you here.
It's been a great blessing, Sarah, being here with you, and to all of the viewers and listeners. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to connecting with you.
And please do connect with her, because this is a wonderful instrument to help you understand your own instrument, understand your own gift, how to use it, where to take it in life. We all need those tools in our backpack, every single one of us, because it makes our journey easier and helps us get through those waves, and it allows us to step into our beingness. And when you're there, I promise you're going to like it. So until next time, folks, bye for now. For more wonderful shows like this, please go to selfdiscoveryradio.com, podcasts, and see our lineup. And if you wish to support us, we have a funded button. Please stay tuned for our next show.